Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between rolling hills and a dense forest, there lived a young girl named Amaka. She was a lively and curious soul, the only child of her mother, Ama. Since her father's passing years ago, Amaka had become the center of her mother's world. Ama, a cautious and wise woman, often reminded Amaka of the dangers lurking beyond their little home. "Amaka," she would say, her voice firm but kind, "this world is not as safe as it seems. You must always listen to me and never wander too far from the house." Amaka, though obedient most times, had a playful spirit that sometimes ignored warnings. She loved the idea of adventure and often dreamed of exploring the world beyond their village. One bright morning, as the sun peeked through their small window, Amaka approached her mother with a question. "Mama, may I go to visit my friends on the other side of the village? They've invited me to play by the river." Ama frowned, her expression growing serious. "No, Amaka. It's not safe for you to go wandering alone, especially not near the forest. There are dangers there you do not understand." "But Mama," Amaka pleaded, "I'll be careful. I won't go near the forest." Ama shook her head. "Amaka, you must stay home today. Help with the chores, do the dishes, sweep the floor, and prepare the food for dinner. Do not step outside until I return from the market. Promise me this." Amaka sighed, but she nodded. "Yes, Mama. I promise." As soon as Ama left for the market, Amaka's curiosity bubbled over. The thought of her friends laughing and playing by the river was too tempting. "I'll be back before Mama even knows I'm gone," she said to herself, convincing herself it was harmless. She quickly changed into her favorite dress and tied her scarf neatly around her head. With a spring in her step, she slipped out of the house and started down the narrow dirt path that wound through the village and toward the forest. The morning sun warmed her skin, and the cheerful chirping of birds filled the air. Amaka hummed a tune, feeling free and happy as she walked. The tall trees swayed gently in the breeze, and the scent of blooming flowers surrounded her. But as she ventured further, the scenery began to change. The path grew narrower, and the forest seemed darker, the air heavier. Amaka's cheerful humming faded as an uneasy feeling crept into her chest. Unbeknownst to her, a shadow moved behind the thick bushes. A man, tall and scruffy, with hollow eyes and a menacing grin, crouched in hiding. His clothes were tattered, and his unkempt hair fell over his face. He was the son of Yondoki, a powerful and wicked witch who demanded sacrifices of young girls to fuel her dark magic. This man had been watching Amaka, waiting for the right moment to strike. As Amaka walked on, she heard a faint snap, a twig breaking underfoot. She stopped abruptly, her heart racing. "What was that?" she whispered, looking around. Seeing nothing, she reassured herself, "It's probably just an animal." But her steps became quicker, and she clutched her scarf nervously. Moments later, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, and her blood ran cold. The man was there, his hollow eyes fixed on her, his cruel smirk sending shivers down her spine. Amaka froze for a moment, then instinctively began to run. "Help!" she screamed, but her voice seemed to disappear into the dense forest. The man chased her, his long strides closing the distance between them. Amaka's legs burned as she ran, her lungs gasping for air. She darted around trees and jumped over roots, but the man was relentless. Suddenly, he began chanting strange words in a language Amaka didn't understand. A wave of cold swept over her, and she stumbled. Before she could get up, her legs refused to move. She looked down in horror, her feet were stuck as if the ground itself had swallowed them. The man approached, his sinister grin widening. "You're coming with me," he said in a gravelly voice, grabbing her arm. Amaka struggled and screamed, but it was no use. He lifted her effortlessly and carried her deeper into the forest. The air grew colder and darker the further they went. The chirping birds were replaced by eerie silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves. Eventually, they reached a small, decrepit hut hidden among the trees. When Amaka woke, she was lying on the floor of the hut. The room was dimly lit, with shadows dancing on the walls from a small fire. Across the room sat Yondoki, a hunched old woman with glowing red eyes and a cackling laugh. "Welcome, little one," Yondoki hissed. "You'll make a fine offering tonight." Tears streamed down Amaka's face. "Please, let me go. I'm just a little girl. My mother is waiting for me at home." Yondoki sneered. "Your cries won't save you. Soon, you'll be part of my magic." As Yondoki prepared her tools, Amaka's heart filled with regret. "If only I had listened to Mama. Why didn't I stay home like she told me?" But regret wouldn't save her now. She had to act. Looking around, she noticed the fire crackling in the middle of the room. An idea began to form. When Yondoki approached with a gleaming knife, Amaka summoned all her courage. At just the right moment, she grabbed a burning stick from the fire and swung it at the witch. Yondoki shrieked as the flames caught her tattered robes. The fire spread quickly, consuming her. The hut filled with smoke, and Amaka coughed as she stumbled to the door. She pushed it open and ran into the night, the witch's screams echoing behind her. Rain began to pour, soaking Amaka to the skin as she ran through the dark forest. She didn't know where she was going, she only knew she had to get far away. For hours, she wandered, her clothes clinging to her body, her feet aching. Cold and hungry, she eventually stumbled upon an old, abandoned hut. It was dark and empty, but it offered shelter from the rain. Amaka curled up on the dusty floor, her body trembling. "Mama," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry. I wish I had listened to you." The next morning, Amaka woke to the sound of birds chirping. The rain had stopped, and sunlight filtered through the trees. Though exhausted, she was determined to find her way home. As Amaka ventured deeper into the forest, she came across an old man gathering firewood. His kind eyes widened in surprise when he saw her. "What are you doing here, child?" he asked gently. Amaka burst into tears, telling him everything, the strange man, the witch, and her escape. The old man listened intently, his heart aching for the frightened girl. "You've been through so much," he said. "Come with me. I'll take you home." Amaka followed him, her hope rekindled. The journey back seemed to take forever, but finally, they reached the edge of the village. As they approached, Amaka saw a crowd of villagers gathered. They were calling her name, searching frantically. At the center of the crowd stood her mother, her face pale with worry. "Mama!" Amaka cried, running toward her. Amma turned, and her eyes filled with tears of relief. "Amaka," she exclaimed, pulling her daughter into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry, Mama," Amaka sobbed. "I'll never disobey you again." Amma kissed her forehead. "I'm just glad you're safe, my child." The villagers celebrated Amaka's return, and from that day on, she listened to her mother's advice, knowing it came from love and wisdom.